You are listening to the audio portion of the QB Power Hour webinar series. The QB Power Hour is a free bi-weekly webinar series for accounting professionals presented by Michelle Long and Dan DeLong, who are very passionate about the industry, QuickBooks, and apps that integrate with QuickBooks. You can find out all the details about the webinar series at qbpowerhour.com. So without further ado, here's Michelle and Dan.
Welcome, everybody, to another QB Power Hour. We're very glad to have you joining us today in our Zoom webinar on niche nuances. Today's topic is retail. We've got great information for you today, so we're very glad to have you with us. My name is Michelle Long. I am a CPA and the owner of Long for Success. If you want to go to the next slide, Dan, that'd be great. And very glad to have you guys joining us here today. I love being a trainer for Intuit, author of several different books. You can check those out on Amazon and invite you to join us on the Facebook group. You can see the link for that there. We have thousands of members on Facebook, and it's always a great conversation. We'd invite you to join us there and continue the conversation. Dan, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hey, everybody. My name is Dan DeLong, a former Intuit employee for about 18 years, now just owner of my own business, Dan Witt, where we transform businesses through technology. And I spent most of my time in the point of sale group, and it's actually where I met our guest. First time was a IRP conference. I was doing a class or a presentation on sales tax. So he came ready with lots of good questions. So let's go ahead and Will, if you want to introduce yourself.
Sure. Dan, thanks for I'm Will English, and I own English Management Solutions here in San Diego. As you can see, kind of all the bona fides. We also did the V12 certification. So if you all have taken the V12 point of sale certification, my voice will sound familiar. We'll try not to drone on too much here. And I also have worked in the point of sale arena, hospitality, all of that for over 20 years, and looking forward to presenting today.
Wonderful. We're very, very glad to have you joining us today, William. I know I love seeing William when he's sitting in my classes or in the sessions that I'm teaching at one of the conferences or something, because I always can direct any retail or point of sale or inventory questions his way. So we're thrilled to have you joining us today.
So today we're going to be talking about the niche nuances of retail, and the niche nuances is really a series that Michelle and I kind of came up with that, you know, as we're seeing in conferences and the terminology and things that are coming around is saying that, you know, for accountants to really be successful and to really know what it is that you know, to best serve your clients, the best idea and the best way to do that is to choose a niche and really get involved in that niche, because then you can become that trusted advisor to your clients. There may be you know, auxiliary services that you can offer to them, not just bookkeeping and accounting, but really kind of business advisory services, and that then now keeps you in that area. So also coming up in May, we're gonna start having QBO Advanced feature series. So Intuit is actually going to start joining us, the first QB Power Hour webinar of the month, and we'll be talking about some of the newest features in QBO Advanced, and also the roadmap of where QBO Advanced is currently and where it's headed to. So please join us for that. What we do is we talk about the QuickBooks tips and what's new and troubleshooting. I come from the Intuit background, so I can tell you what QuickBooks can do, and then Michelle comes from the accounting background, and she can tell you what you should do. So kind of best of both worlds there. We'll also talk about marketing and pricing and building your practice. You see the link there for the PDF of the slides. You can go to our bit.ly link there and see all the handouts for not just this one, but all of the other QB Power Hours as well. The recordings now, since we have transitioned to Zoom, and this is our maiden voyage, so we're glad you're here and joining us, and I apologize for any technical hiccups that may have happened today. But we are actually simulcasting on YouTube as we speak. So if you can't join us with Zoom, you can subscribe to Michelle's YouTube channel, Along for Success, and you'll get notified when we go live, so that you can just join us there as well. But also they'll be there for all time as well. So we'll be able to, and that actually feeds into our website too. So this is part of what the transforming businesses through technology that I like to do, make things easy for people. And then also we'll have the podcast as well. So if you can't join us live or with video, you can join us through the podcast through your favorite podcasting. I can't say it. Services. So some upcoming events. Of course, we've got the QB Power Hour and the QBTrainingEvents.com. Obviously, with the state of affairs of the current affairs of what we're doing, the in-person road shows are postponed or canceled, or whatever you want to call them these days. Oh, we can't hear you, Michelle. I know you said something.
I was going to say, yeah, hopefully they're just postponed until the fall. Let's all cross our fingers that we can get back on the road this fall.
Yeah, and so since we did transition to Zoom, and I can see you can ask in the chat room there. There will be places for Q&A, and we're still trying to understand how we manage the webinar. Yeah, we did leave the last GoToWebinar series as far as an email reminder that we are switching to Zoom. So you should expect those emails to stop moving forward. So let's launch a poll, and then we'll switch things over to Will. And let's see here. So the first question here is, and it should pop up as a secondary, what version of QuickBooks are you using? Of course, we want to understand what, where you're at as far as who's joining us here today. If you use both QuickBooks Online only, or QB Desktop, or something else. We're not Intuit only here. So Will, what got you into retail?
Sure.
As a niche. I mean, I know you and I were talking, and sometimes you'll start off the conversation as, why would you want to get into this? So I'm going to ask you, why would you want to get into this?
The thing about retail is it can be 24/7. There are plenty of times where, they say the store closes at 7, and can we work after that? And I'm like, okay. Especially brutal are those on the East Coast, since I'm here on the West Coast. I actually worked in retail for a while. I was a department manager at Kmart, and I remember attending one of the Sleater groups, probably, I forget which year, and Doug's like, specialize, find something to specialize in and own that. And I'm like, oh, okay. At the same time, kind of a confluence of events, I was writing articles for the accountant's newsletter back then, and the gentleman was here in San Diego, and we got together, and I had just come across the first point of sale client, and I was telling him about that, and he said, oh, I think they're talking about starting a reseller program. Would you be interested? And I'm like, and what's amazing to me is it's one of those pivots in life where it's like a confluence of events came together, and suddenly I find myself selling retail.
Wow. So it's funny how just life takes its turns, and then you find yourself into something that you ultimately enjoy. So
and honestly, I do. I mean, that's the thing. I know Michelle is like, but I truly, my small retailers, and right now is just absolutely killing me, because I was talking to, I have one of my retailers who was able to order face masks from a wholesaler and offered some to me. So how kind was that? And she said, I don't think I'm going to reopen. I don't know that I can make it. She's here. I live downtown San Diego, and we have a huge convention center, a lot of convention center traffic. She's on the main drag, and we're not going to have conventions probably for the rest of this year. And so she's saying, well, even if I open, I don't know that I can make it. I know that my landlord's going to want his rent, but I don't know that I mean, why should I just open to pay the rent? And I'm like, wow, okay. So it'll be interesting. We are starting to, as Michelle said, we deal with inventory just in general. So we have quite a few inventory clients that are in enterprise, and we also deal with e-commerce. So we're, that's kind of where we're pivoting yet again. It'll be interesting to see what the small retailer looks like in a year from now.
Right. And I think that's part of the main thing as what we're experienced during this pandemic series is that, or this time frame, is that traditional businesses that were caught unprepared for something like this are really needing to take that look back and, okay, well, how can I, because this won't be the last time that a crisis comes up. It hasn't been the first time, but hopefully this will give them a way, as assuming they survive through all of this, as a way to, okay, well, what can I do? And some working with someone like yourself, that you would have that depth and breadth of that niche, will be able to allow them to give them options, and that's great. And I appreciate you being here for that. Now our poll is looks like again, most people are using both. So 64% are using both. There's 15% with desktop and 33% of QuickBooks Online, and some people are using other things as well. So Will, if you want to share the presentation, you can kind of take it away and kind of guide us through Will English's mind.
And I saw the comment about the background. So yeah, that was something I found on Zoom, and I'm all I'm near the water. However, the
not that close.
not that close. And what's interesting is I would have been in Hawaii, actually on vacation right now.
Oh, man.
Hawaii got canceled. So
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I was talking to a friend last night, and I'm like, well, and I'm not going to make this political, but it just amazes me that an economy that is so tourist centric, that they basically have just killed it. And anyway, moving on. All right. So the agenda today, we're going to talk about some point of sale solutions, and we'll go through all the various options that a client might have and the pluses and minuses on each of those. Then we're going to dig into the inventory and how that works in retail, how you deal with cost of goods sold. Next, we're going to work with some reporting that we like to be able to teach our clients. The issue with the reporting is, it's great that you have a point of sale system, but what are you going to do with it? You got to make sure that you're with the reports and the metrics that you want to take a look at. So we're going to do that, dig into sales tax a little bit, and then finish up with, actually, that slide is different. Sorry about that. Hey, isn't this, supposed to, the Google Slides, isn't that supposed to update? Well,
it's supposed to.
So
it should be the integrations, right? That's what we're going to talk about.
That's the integrations, right? We're going to talk about integrations. So, Dan, did you change my slide on me?
I did not.
Anyways, so let's talk about the various solutions and go through each of them. So first of all, a pen and paper. Believe it or not, I still have clients or prospects, because they're generally not clients, that will take a just a standard receipt book, and they'll start using that. It's an easy way to get started, certainly. You can get it going for less than $10. I remember working with a prospect whose husband actually was the one who invited me out to present the wife. And the wife said, I really think that the client likes that hand touch of me writing out the receipt and all of that personalization. And I'm like, okay, let's go with that. I don't know of anyone that would, I mean, unless your handwriting is impeccable, and my handwriting is horrible, so I'd be pretty useless. It's very slow, of course, because you're literally having to handwrite out everything, or you're just writing some hieroglyphics that no one understands. It really prone to error and losing information. And then when you think about it, you have to do something with those books. So you would then go back to your QuickBooks or your QBO, and you would have to hand key in on all that information. So, I am amazed at the number of people, but as we all know, our biggest competition is pen and paper, even still, even in the accounting arena. So on retail, but we don't see that too often anymore. We're more likely to see a cash register, Samsung, Casio, one of those. Again, pretty inexpensive, and you can get up and running pretty quickly because you're not really tracking inventory. You're not doing anything besides making a very fancy, receipt. You can get some pretty sophisticated registers that will give you department level reporting and whatnot. So that does help. And you get a Z out tape. So for those of you that are not familiar with retail concepts, a Z out, if you looked at the old cash register, you have an X and a Z key, literally. And so you go to the X and that gives you a shift report. And you go to the Z and that gives you an end of day report. And the end of day report.
That was part of, I think the Z in Z out is for zero, right? That would zero out your end of the day, so that the next day's sales would then be part of the next zero out, kind of like batching your merchant account.
Exactly, in the merchant account, yeah. So the idea is that you're going to Z out and it's going to spit out a report to you, which is better than having to go through every single piece of receipt paper that you have. But it's still, the problem is that I'm not able to really track inventory on any level. About the best that I can do is I get a department level tracking. So again, it's something that's pretty common. And we'll talk about some of the tablet-based systems, which are just a little fancier cash registers. So now we're going to move to the cloud. So an example of a cloud solution would be something like a Revel, which we deal with, or a Lightspeed, which we also deal with. So obviously in a cloud solution, you got to be connected to the internet. Duh. And the problem with that is that if your internet goes down, that you're out of business. So typically when we're working with these prospects, what we want to do is make sure, A, that they have really good internet, and B, that we create some sort of failover connection. So for example, you can get a router that will fail over to a cellular connection. So if my primary internet fails, then my secondary goes to cellular. And if neither one's working, then we got bigger problems than the fact that you have no internet. So anyway.
Pen and paper. Back to pen and paper.
Back to pen and paper. But, seriously, if your cellular is not working and your internet's not working, then the zombie apocalypse is upon us. So, the nice thing about these is that it are device independent. So with Lightspeed, it's basically a browser-based application. You open up your whatever browser of choice, and you can go ahead and take sales. The other nice thing about it is that it will basically give you the opportunity to have any form factor that you need. And in general, Mac computers are going to be cloud-based. I'm not sure. I think it's probably because writing an app for a Mac is depends on the user base. But again, in Lightspeed, it's browser-based, or you can actually install an app on your iPad if you need to do that. Okay, so in order to pay for this, it's generally a monthly subscription. We're all familiar now with the QBO model, where it's basically they're going to ding you every month for an amount, and you get to use the software for that. We need to make sure that we're aware when we're going ahead and looking at this is how does the hardware work? If it's just browser-based, then typically all of the Windows hardware that you have, or if you're using a Mac, those will all work. If you're using a tablet in conjunction with that, then especially with an iPad, a hardware can be kind of tricky because Apple really controls what they allow to connect. And so you need to make sure that when you're dealing with that and trying to troubleshoot, that you're aware that if you're using an iPad-based solution, it's going to make sure it's going to limit the hardware that you can use. And unfortunately, Apple tends to be more expensive in the hardware arena.
That's an interesting call out, because I would have never. I mean, when you say it, it makes sense. But when I wouldn't have thought of that until you would have experienced it, and then it would have been like too late. Like then you're kind of surrounded.
Well, and the other interesting thing about Apple is that they also they control what the user interface looks like. They tell you basically what it needs to be, and then you build the application to their specifications. So, which is kind of which I get, because they have very much an ecosystem that they deal with, and they want you to be able to, adhere to those rules. So, all right, reporting depends on the application. We can talk a little bit more about that during reporting. And what happens if the internet goes down? We've talked a little bit about that. Next up is QuickBooks Point of Sale. This is my wheelhouse. So it's a PC-based application. So literally you install it on your PC. There's tons of them out there, Retail Pro, Counterpoint. I mean, there's a ton of, and this is basically what everyone grew up in. And even to a certain extent, the larger retailers, I mean, they're using things that are, PC based, right? Even if you're at a Target or whatever, you're looking at a PC, basically cash register. So the hardware, as I noted here, can be less expensive than a Mac because you're pretty much using standard off-the-shelf stuff. Star, Citizen, all of those are printers that are Epson. Everyone makes printers that work with that. You also have a wider variety of POS hardware to choose from. And for the most part, it's pretty compatible. If you go, oftentimes we'll be switching people off of one point of sale system into QuickBooks Point of Sale. And a lot of times we can reuse a lot of the hardware that they already have. Pretty much the only thing that we can't would be whatever payment devices that they're using. So pricing varies with the product selected. You need to consider, in a lot of cases, some of the higher end systems, Counterpoint, for example, which is by NCR, they require that you pay, I believe it's 11% or 12% annual fee on top of your purchase price. So you're going to purchase the software and then you pay for the annual maintenance. The nice thing about that is that you do get upgrades included in that. So you it builds against your obsolescence, as opposed to when you're looking at QuickBooks Point of Sale. If there's a new version that comes out and you need it, then basically you're going to be forced to, or you'll purchase the software yet again. So you need to consider, are there any annual costs with that? In the case of QuickBooks Point of Sale, there's not really any annual cost beyond the initial purchase of the software. So that's kind of cool. Okay. So with a tablet solution, these would be the Squares and the Clovers of the world. It's generally a hybrid solution. What I mean by that is that you're looking at a tablet, you're looking at an iPad or an Android device. I'm sure, Square is pretty ubiquitous now. So, if you haven't seen a Square register, it's like you must be in outer Mongolia. So anyways, so you have the tablet itself, and then you're going to log into a console in the back end to do your management. So that's very cool, because one of the issues in a PC-based environment is that you got to be literally in front of it in order to run reports and whatnot. Now, of course, with technology, we can do go to my PC, log me in, something like that, to log into the system. But you're taking over the PC if you're going to be doing the reporting and whatnot. So in the case of a tablet, you have the ability to have your front end taking sales and doing everything that they need to be doing, and you can be logged into the back and you can be actually looking at sales in real time. You can be updating menus, adding products and whatnot. So again, in the case of the cloud, because of that, does it provide offline ticket processing? Oh, going back to PC based, typically when you go offline, you don't have internet. That's fine, the application will work, but in the most cases, your credit card processing will not work. And so then you're forced to either do a call in to get a validation number or write down credit card numbers, which of course is a gross violation of everything that's holy in PCI compliance. But I've seen it happen. Or again, having some sort of failover solution. Some of the higher end systems like Counterpoint do have the capability of doing offline ticket processing. So in a tablet solution, for example, Revel has the ability to do offline ticket processing. What that means is that if I were to lose my internet connection, I can still ring up sales. I can still take credit cards. However, what it does is it queues them up and it waits for basically your internet to come back. Once your internet comes back, then it goes and processes all those tickets and then reports back to you anything that might have failed the verification. So, and in the case of Revel, you can set parameters around that. So you can say, I don't want any offline ticket to be more than $50. I don't want a total of my offline sales to be more than $500. And so you can go ahead and do that.
And one of the things about, to kind of feed off of that, in a retail type of environment, a lot of times they're not keeping track of customers. The specific customers that come in, unless they have some kind of, rewards program or something like that.
Right.
So in that case, when that happens, if they're not capturing that customer information and there's a failure in the credit card, well, then either they've just given away their service or products and services, or they need to try to figure out how to get a hold of that person to be able to
right. So that they will get a report that says, hey, this charge did not go through. And for the most part, you'll get like the last 4 digits or whatever. So you do have a risk there. And again, when we've implemented Revel, in general, it's a quick service restaurant. And, if you lose $7 or $8, okay, fine. And that's why you want to control, again, the maximum amount of a ticket is how much am I willing to lose, because I can't really necessarily track that person down.
Mm-hmm.
So also, what are the networking requirements? A lot of times, like a Square or a Clover, you just attach it to the Wi-Fi that you have in your store. That can present problems itself, because in general, you're going to provide Wi-Fi to your customers. So you need to think about the security requirements there. And we almost never recommend that you put them both. Basically, you either do one of two things. For example, in my office, and I'm a geek, so I like having stuff, and I can afford to pay for stuff. I have a zoned routing. So if I have clients that show up at the office, I can have them connect to a guest network that is totally separate from my internal network. So there's no crossover. Same thing would be true, and especially more so even for a retailer or a hospitality, QSR. You want to make sure that whatever network that you're connecting all of your devices to is nothing that your customers can get to. So there's some considerations that have to be taken there. In the case of Revel, they actually set up an internal hidden network inside of your network. Or again, what we would do is we would recommend getting a zoned router where you can have your public and then you can have your private, and never the twain shall meet. So it's really important. Security, especially nowadays, is critical. So
Yeah,
any
that was
more?
that was one of my favorite. Well, it wasn't favorite, but one of the water cooler stories that happened where back in the early days of network security, uh, someone was a QuickBooks point of sale customer. She took her client machine home laptop to go work on it, and she logged in and inadvertently logged into a gun shop that was on the other side of the wall in her apartment. And so she updated all of her inventory items. She was like lollipops and gumdrops, like a candy store.
Yeah.
And she's updating all of her items in a gun shop's point of sale. And of course, they and then she realized we realized what happened, and we were just waiting for that call from the gun shop saying, "What's up with your buggy software? Now I have all these
Right.
these other items in my
It is
list."
amazing. I mean, I have stories, Dan. Believe me. So,
Right.
the biggest part of this is, unfortunately, they don't think about it, and so, and that brings up another interesting point. Although I don't have a slide for that, is ideally we want to get up in front of it, and we want to be able to get in there and be the trusted advisor and be able to recommend the best solution based on their specific needs, as opposed to just taking whatever it is that they have. That's the hard part, is that while Square is it's an okay system, Clover is an okay system, Shopify is an okay system. The thing is that with most of them, they don't have the full inventory functionality that I need for retailers. And so in Clover's case, it's basically a toolkit. It's a very fancy cash register until I add inventory and this and e-com and this and that and that. In the case of Shopify, it really doesn't track inventory at all. There are some ways that you can do it, but it's not. So it scares me what these systems that are out there, and our clients just simply don't know. That all they see is it's like, oh, Square, $50 a month, sure, okay. Or Clover, it's included because I'm processing with my bank, yay. And so it's like, no, not yay. And then of course us as accountants and bookkeepers, we get to clean up the mess, because whatever comes out of that system, we need to make sense of and try to go, okay, this is, we're turning, well, never mind. I have an expression, but I will leave it alone.
Let's keep it clean. Keep it clean.
That also, though, like you said, a lot of these small businesses, when they're starting, they don't know what they don't know. And that's where it's a good opportunity, I think, for people like you, people that specialize in this area, to say, hey, this is why that's not really good for you. Because like you said, they just see the price. They don't realize all the things that they're missing out on.
Right. Well, the other thing that I tell my prospects is, like, inventory is a discipline. If you're not willing to do the time, or what, I forget what the expression is, then, don't do the crime. There you go.
Yeah.
My brain is, I'm still, the coffee's still kicking in. It's early.
It does take a commitment with inventory. You have to be committed to recording every purchase.
Yep.
They're good about recording their sales. I think sometimes it's the purchases where,
right,
they aren't as good. But you're right. They have to be committed to tracking inventory.
Which leads me to my next slide. Thank you for the setup, Michelle. So we'll look at the inventory workflows. Really, the only reason to purchase the system is to manage your inventory. Otherwise, get a cash register. Who cares, right? And then how does it support your business, or can you adapt? So all software is a compromise. I mean, if we had endless money and endless time, we could build a piece of software that would match exactly our needs, but of course, no one ever does that. So can you have it so, again, if you're using a Square, yet you're heavy into inventory, it might not be the best solution. Can you adapt your business? Or maybe you should look at changing your point of sale system. Now, our favorite topic, how does it connect your accounting system, and do you even want it to? And we'll talk a little bit about that. And I'm going to close out the session with showing you a piece of software that allow you to connect most point of sale systems with, at least cloud-based point of sale systems with QuickBooks. So is there a direct connection? Do you want that connection? For example, in the case of Square, Square now has, if you go to the App Store, you can download an app that will connect your Square into QBO. Yay. Except that it really, it is only best for very small, low volume retailers, because what it does is it basically creates every single sales receipt from Square inside your QBO. And if you're doing hundreds of sales receipts today, I don't know about you guys, but I will kill QBO with that sort of volume. I had a client where it was Revel, but for whatever reason, they wanted to connect in a detailed fashion. And over time, we couldn't run reports. Certain reports simply wouldn't run. So we need to be careful of that. So we need to figure out how best that we can connect the system if we're going to do a direct connection. At a minimum, we should be able to get a Z out, right? A cash register will even do that, although you'd be surprised at the number of point of sale systems that you have to pull 2 or 3 reports to actually get a Z out report. We also want to know what we sold, makes sense, and margin reports would be ideal. Purchase, we need to know what we bought and what we owe for it, and then what our overall inventory is for a lot of purposes, for tax purposes and whatnot. So, all right, poll number 2.
On to the poll. Okay, how many of your clients integrate their point of sale system with QuickBooks? This could be another point of sale system. It could be desktop, online. Just what do you find? What do you find currently? Now, William, I wanted to talk a little bit about the QuickBooks point of sale journey line, because there was a point where it's all desktop, and then you mentioned several times Revel came into the picture. So
Yeah.
Intuit itself stopped actively developing QuickBooks point of sale, the desktop product, and then entered into a partnership with Revel, and you lived through that. Can you give us kind of like that experience of what you saw from that perspective, from your perspective?
I was fortunate, or I guess maybe not so fortunate, to be a guinea pig after they first announced the partnership. I was sent to San Francisco, which is where Revel was headquartered at the time, and we were first group to be trained on it. And there are 5 of us there, and we're all looking at each other going, oh, this isn't good. Revel is a very good QSR restaurant system. And it's back then it was horrible for retail. Since then, they've made a lot of improvements, especially as part of the partnership. Intuit kind of drove them, because that was their customer base, was all retail, and Rebels was mostly, so it was something that just, anyways, what I like to say is that Intuit and Rebel got a divorce, and I got the kid. In a lot of cases,
you got custody.
I support Rebel clients, and I'll still sell it, but even them, they're changing their model, and so we don't do as much of that anymore. But it was, the sad part is, had they been able to work on the desktop software, because then after the thing blew up, then they're like, oh man, well, we really do want to be in this business, and so they relaunched development on the desktop product, but they wasted 4 years, and in 4 years in software time is
a lifetime. Yeah.
And the same thing kind of happened with Mac, with the QuickBooks for Mac product, where the subsidies from Apple ran out, so they stopped developing the Mac product, and then now there's all these Mac users. Okay, well, let's revamp the Mac product, and they've done it twice now, where there's been a gap.
I remember being told at one of the reseller conferences, like, QBO is the new Mac product, that we're not going to do another. It's like, okay,
here it is again.
Well, and so there is development going on in the desktop product, and so hopefully we'll have some fun things to talk about in the not too distant future regarding that.
So I don't know if people can see the results, because I am trying to share the results of the poll. but yeah, most people, 55%, not integrating their point of sale with their QuickBooks. Either they don't have a client. I'm assuming that's one of the options. They're not even in this industry, or they just don't integrate at all. 1 to 2 is about 35%, and 3 to 5, 8%, and a couple percent with 5 plus. So we have a few other William Englishes out there.
Well, yeah. But that'd be kind of scary. Anyway, so all right, moving on.
All right.
So let's go back there. Oops, too far. All right. So accounting for inventory manually, this is where people kind of get, I believe that we do a disservice, is a lot of times when I come in and a bookkeeper's there, they're just posting everything directly to cost of goods sold. Okay. However, the problem is that especially the seasonality of business. So let's say that I'm buying in September for the holiday season. I'm going to have a cost of goods sold in August, September that is it doesn't represent anything about it's not related to sales at all. And so therefore, what we recommend is that we're going to go ahead and create an item that points to inventory. And then you're going to go ahead and use however you're going to put into that item. So what that does is it increases the value of the inventory. So I have a bill, I'm receiving that in, I've received in $1,000 worth of inventory. I'm now increasing the value of my inventory. And then I go through the normal process to pay or whatnot. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the sales summary report, which hopefully your point of sale system has. If it doesn't, then that's another conversation. And then I simply go in on a daily basis and I generate a journal entry that will debit cost of goods sold and credit inventory. If I've done all of that correctly, then I'm getting perpetual inventory. If I'm posting the cost of goods sold, what I would then do at the end of the year, I would go ahead and do a physical inventory and true up my cost of goods sold number. But now I'm missing, the ability to really run financials throughout the year that are going to make any sense. So we need to really, really be careful of that. Yeah, and I unfortunately I see it way too often, and so hopefully no one here has been doing that. But if you have, please consider not. So.
Yeah, that was always a big challenge, especially when business owners would call Intuit support and say, well, I just put everything to cost of goods sold. It's like, well, there's a cost of goods when it's sold. There, that would be how I would explain it. It's cost of goods when you sell it, not cost of goods that I'm going to sell. And then that kind of turned on the light bulb of, oh, okay, so now I get it.
And the other thing that I'll use to explain is it's like, well, you're buying inventory. So what you're doing is you're changing one form of an asset, money, for another form of an asset, inventory. And so all I'm doing is exchanging that. It's all there. It's not until I actually sell it that I have a cost. And people are like, oh, okay, yeah. But I like yours too, cost of when it's sold. I'll have to, can I trademark that?
Yeah. As long as I get 11% of the royalties.
There you go. Actually, I was presenting and had and again, it was almost off the fly. Was literally, it's like, inventory is an investment, but don't get too invested in your inventory. I was talking about literally people that will not sell things because they think that that one person is going to walk in and pay full price. No, get rid of it and turn it into money so that you can buy more inventory. All right.
And William,
test, right?
Yeah, the old-fashioned way I would do the dust test with clients, and I'd be like, if it's got a whole bunch of dust on top of it, it's been sitting here too long, and it's time to get rid of it. And I was telling Dan, I had this one client, he was like, but I'm the only one in town that carries that, and I'm like, I wonder why nobody's buying it. Mark it down and sell it. Just because you think it's a great inventory item, if your clients or if your customers aren't buying it, time to mark it down and get it sold. Because like you said, Will, your inventory is cash sitting on your shelf.
Right.
You know, you got to keep it moving.
Dollar bill. So, and that's we're going to get into the metrics, and what we want to do is make sure that, you know, inventory is not a member of the family. It needs to be as hard or harder than you. So,
yep.
Which leads into
it's got to get out of the nest. It's got to get out of the nest.
There you go. Who's heard of it? And I've heard it pronounced a couple of different ways. One is Gimroy, another way is Jimroy. So I'm curious of who of our audience has actually heard about that.
You know, when I read it, I was like, no, never heard of it.
Right.
I'm like, and I thought I was in this type of thing.
In it to win it, right?
I hadn't officially heard of it, but I know what ROI is, and then it was pretty quick and easy for me to figure out the GM part. So
there you go. All right. How are we doing on time, Dan? We're pretty good.
We got 15 minutes left in the hour.
Okay. I think we're doing okay.
All right. Yeah, we're coming in for a landing here. All right. So let's.
This is fun. I got to do this bourbon with you guys.
Yeah, we really appreciate you being here, Willie.
Yes, we are glad to have you here because retail, I mean, there's retailers everywhere, you know, so it's always a great area where people, if they learn more about it, you know, they can start taking on these retail clients and focus on that and stuff. So we're really glad to have you here, especially now. These retailers can use our help more than ever.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And in fact, it's funny because I have clients all over the country because of our niche. I've always thought about, okay, as a retirement plan, I'll just drive around and visit all of my, and these are people that I've never even really seen. And it was really funny, sad. Took a drive this weekend, just had to get out of the house. And so took a drive up into the mountains. Every single park was closed. Every single parking lot of every single park was closed. And so I'm driving, I'm going, because I bought a sandwich, and so I'm like, I have a client out in here. I'm going to go visit them and then sit in their parking lot and eat my sandwich. I did. So I popped in and said, hey, Gordon, how's it going? And he's like, what are you doing here? I'm like, well, I'm just out for a drive. And I thought, you know, I'd come and say hi. And he's like, I need a new version of QuickBooks. Can you give me a call? I'm like, sure, okay. And then I said, do you mind if I sit in your parking lot and eat my lunch? And he's like, really? I'm like, yeah, there's no place to park. Strange times we live in. Wow. So
it is, isn't it?
We're going to teach some people some things.
Yeah, so 87%, no idea what Gimroy is.
And I ran across this term probably 7 or 8 years ago, and because I didn't know as accountants, but it's a very, you know, so there are certain, in fact, we'll go to the next slide, get rid of the results, is these are all very much retail metrics. We're going to talk about the 3 of them, but, you know, these, if you're going to work in this industry, these are all terms that you should be familiar with. So sales per square foot, pretty straightforward, right? You take the amount of sales, what is square foot of your store, get there. Stock turnover rates, we'll talk about that one. Profitability by product, by department, suggested reorder. You know, if you're gonna be able to manage it, you don't wanna buy stuff that you're gonna just have to mark down. What are trends? What are replenishment? What's your average customer spend? Does your point of sale system give you this information? If it doesn't, then maybe you should look at, you know, not. Itemized cost and profit per item. Store, if you have multiple locations, you want to be able to compare those. Cost of what your inventory is on hand. And also at retail, you want to know what the value of it is at retail. Sales by hour or day. Those are all, you know, really important things. And as I said, Gimroy. So stock turn rate is pretty straightforward. It's how quickly do your items move? Inventory turns is another way. QuickBooks point of sale actually has this report built into. It's under inventory, and then you can go ahead and look at it. So, however, if you want to do the math, it's pretty straightforward. You're going to take your COGS against your average inventory for that period. So if average inventory is 100,000, COGS was 500,000, the inventory turned 5 times. Now, that's really not relevant to me on a global basis. I want to really look at it on a department basis, or better yet, on a product basis. Keep in mind too that, for example, we work with a lot of nurseries, and their annuals, they're moving those, once a week. We got to turn that once a week or every other week. Where a tree, I might turn that once a year. So you got to look at that and make sure that. And the other part of that is, obviously, if it's turning faster, you need to order it more often. You need to make sure that you're backing into that. So if my annuals, if I'm turning them every 2 weeks, and what's my average sales volume, I need to back into that to know that, okay, I got to order this amount. And especially in nurseries, it's a very seasonal business. In fact, I worked a trade show and talking to a prospect, he works 3 months a year. He makes enough money in those 3 months to basically close the place up and go to Hawaii. So it's not a bad business.
And turn is really like, you want to find the sweet spot. And
Absolutely.
right, you want to have just enough coming in so that you're not, investing into that dust into
Right,
the dust test, right?
I mean, the perfect solution is you have the product on the shelf at the moment that the person comes in and wants to buy it.
Right, you want the Dell computer,
Right.
right? Like they would
that's
have just in time.
That's the Amazon model, is that, but there's huge warehouses and things. Of course, our retailers can't have huge warehouses. Right. But so, and like I said, seasonal items turn and so weeks on hand inventory versus weekly sales. So again, those are all things that you need to take a look at to make sure that you're able to manage the stock turn rate correctly. So I had a point, but it went out of my head.
Well, one of the things that I think, you could get real specific with the EOQ, the economic order quantity and all that, but, just thinking about, okay, when I place this order, how long does it take me to get it? If it's going to take like 2 weeks to get it, how much do you sell in that 2-week period? When you're trying to determine what a good reorder point is going to be and stuff. So we can help the clients with this kind of stuff. These are definitely areas of opportunity for us, for helping them to look at this stuff.
Is my product coming from China, or is it coming from, wherever? So, so those are all questions that you need to be able to answer for the client and to help them to answer it. And so the hard part is that a lot of retailers, they get into the business because they like purses. So they're going to open a purse.
Right.
They get to buy purses at wholesale, and it's, and if you're going to do that, okay, do it on Etsy, do it on eBay, do it on, but don't open a retail store. A retail is a science, and you need to know the science. And part of the science are things like stock turn rate and GMROI. So let's talk about that next. So it's gross margin return on investment. Is it earning enough money for you? As I said, you want your dollars to work as hard as you do. So for every dollar that you're spending on a specific item or department, how much is that dollar earning for you? And the margin is there. So gross margin of the department divided by the average inventory for a period of time. As I said, this is not your family. We don't want your inventory to be lazy. We want it to work as hard as you do. And that's literally what I tell my clients is it's like, you want to make sure, oops, too far. Again, they're working tremendous hours. And, so if you're buying products that's not earning its keep, then you need to be able to liquidate that and then be able to invest in stuff that you can. All right. So the example is my formal dresses have a gross margin of $150,000, which again is a pretty, any point of sale system hopefully can give you that. My average inventory cost is $95, so you can see that my GMROI is 1.58, meaning that 58 cents, basically I earned $1.58 for every dollar. Casual department, on the other hand, I earned $1.87, so casual department's a better investment. However, there are reasons why you might want to keep something if you're known for in your community for your selection of formal dresses. There are reasons why you might want to keep things that are maybe make less money for you, or again, in the grocery business, they, certain things they make nothing on, or they'll make, they'll lose money. However, guess what? That bag of Cheetos, they're making a tremendous amount. So overall, they're able to get their 5-6% margin, but it's the proper mix. So there are reasons why you might want to have something that doesn't earn as much for you as you would want, but it's just knowing the math and being able to do that for you. So you can Google it for your particular industry, and also notice that the higher the turns, the two are related. So if you're turning your inventory faster, means that your money's working harder and everything. And I'm running out of time here, so let's go much quicker.
Oh yeah, let's just gloss over sales tax now.
Yes, unfortunately. But okay, so daily sales receipt, which is if you're not connecting, what you should be doing. Are you multiple taxes involved? For online, we actually recommend turning sales tax off and making it just an item, a service item. I have a whole nother presentation on how to do that. If people are interested, they can email me and I can get that to them. So tax considerations, a lot of our clients are taking stuff, they take their dresses, they take whatever from the store. How are you going to handle that? What we do is we actually make it a part of the sale. We put it in the cost. The department has said that's acceptable as opposed to having to pay use tax on it. And then shipping is a destination based. Is the customer in the store? I don't care. We have a lot of clients that, where there are people coming in from Arizona and they're going, well, ship it to me in Arizona. And it's like, well, you still got to collect the sales tax, unfortunately. It's only if you're not physically in the location. So integrating, should you? Manual entry. So daily sales receipt, we talked a couple of ways of doing that, again, beyond the topic of this discussion. Journal entries, I would not recommend. I would recommend doing daily sales receipt. There are also some third-party tools out there. So if you're able to get some sort of a report out of your system, then A2X is good for, I think it's Amazon, and Transaction Pro Importer, our friend, is good for pretty much everything else. And let me go ahead and demo my... So Shogo is a product that, can you all see that?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right. So Shogo is a product that actually allows you to integrate a lot of different point of sale systems. They focus primarily on the hospitality industry, as you can see, but they do have Shopify, they have ShopKeep, they have NCR Silver, Square, and Lightspeed. So I'm going to go ahead and jump in. Lightspeed actually has a branded version to them of Shogo called Lightspeed Accounting. And so the cool thing about Lightspeed Accounting or Shogo is that you have the ability to throw some forecasts in here as well. Log me out, of course. So log me in, Scotty. So you can go in and you can set certain parameters and whatnot. And then you can actually get emailed a report that says how close are you to all of your, to what your plan is. But I want to focus more here on the accounting side of things. Is literally what you do is you log in. You can see I'm connected to a QBO file here. And I can map all of the various accounts. And hello, once a day what happens is it automatically posts all of the information, in this case from Lightspeed, into my point of sale system. So no daily sales receipt, no nothing. It just automatically happens. For those people that have an e-commerce solution, then we recommend WebGility. WebGility does a nice job of connecting multiple channels into point of sale, into QBO, into enterprise or whatnot. So with that, and I'm sorry I kind of rushed through that pretty quickly.
So, but this solution is kind of sits between their point of sale and the ultimate destination.
Right. Either WebGility or Shogo is a connector. So it's basically taking information that you've got and connecting it to something else. I know like Zapier is a big one now in the QBO world. So this is a industry specific Zapier, if you would. So,
Gotcha.
okay.
There's a question here about a company sells only through Shopify, does not use any app to connect, and just asking for what's the best way to record inventory COGS in 2019. Would it just be a summary transaction, or would you put something like this between it to then make it happen?
The hard thing about Shopify, and this is changing, we're actually a Shopify reseller, is that they don't really have costs in there. I mean, you can sort of, now they do, so you can put in your cost, but there's not a receiving process really that's in the system. You do a transfer of inventory in, so it's pretty kludgy. But yeah, I would connect it via Shogo, or I would do a daily sales receipt, and then I would take my journal entry for my COGS like I talked about in the other slide.
Is that what you're finding in these quick, easy answers like Square or Shopify, you know, that are easy to get up and running? It's just they don't have the metrics of the cost inventory piece of that to really keep track of that.
When I first ran across Shopify, I was shocked that they don't have a receiving process. There's not really and even now they call it a transfer in, so you can transfer in it. And again, now I haven't looked at it in a few months, so if it's changed, forgive me. But they don't have a receiving process. You have a receiving process in almost any accounting inventory management system. So how can you not receive inventory into your system? You know, you transfer in, okay, I've done this at this cost. It populates the field, but then what happens to connect that to QuickBooks? There's really nothing. If I have a receiving process, then, for example, in Lightspeed, actually have a receiver. I can go ahead and that creates a bill or creates a PO inside a QBO, and I'm off to the races. I was stunned to find that out. Same with Square and you know, so part of that is that they pretty much, well, Shopify started as a web e-commerce, and then they added the POS. And again, with e-commerce, you need to know what your costs are, I would think, but that's where it came out of. Square came out of a way of taking credit cards, and, you know, so that's really, and they built on top of it, but it wasn't conceived as a full management system, inventory management. Gotcha. All right, the last poll, because we're over time now.
Yeah, we'll run a little extra here today because you're giving us lots of good nuggets and information. Maybe we should have you come back just to do an hour on integration. So, do you have customers selling in multiple locations or channels? And what we mean by that is, do they sell online? Do they sell on Amazon fulfillment? Do they sell Etsy stores, and, you know, multiple channels or locations? Yeah, I mean, the integration piece, I think, is probably the biggest challenge. And then there's always that it works with QuickBooks. Like they'll put it on their website and say it works with QuickBooks. Are they talking about QuickBooks Desktop? Are they talking about online? How does it integrate? So that's where you really need to dive in.
Yeah, exporting out an IIF file.
Exactly. All right, so we'll end the poll there and share the results. It looks like it's pretty split. Pretty close there. 43% selling in multiple channels and 53% not.
All right, so here's all of my contact information, and if I can do a brief commercial plug here. So we are an Intuit reseller, QSP is what we're called. And so what that means is that you can use us to basically have products that, so if your customer needs a QuickBooks point of sale desktop, or if they need merchant services, or if they need payroll, you can go through us, and you can actually earn some commissions that you can either give back to your clients or keep for yourself. And in this day and age, it's Warren Buffett says, find something where you can earn money at night while you're asleep. So that's kind of my contribution to that.
Get some mailbox money coming your way. Yeah, so definitely reach out to Will if you need to. Have any? He's made himself available to to maybe follow up and work with you. And if this is not a niche that you want to get in, but you maybe have a couple acquaintances or potential clients where you could do the bookkeeping, he could handle the retail side of things, and definitely consider working with William. And William, I do appreciate you coming out today and sitting on the beach with us.
There you go. I wish.
So we will see you at upcoming events. Our QB Power Hour series. Again, we're doing the QBO Advanced series, and we'll have lots more niche nuances as well. And you can log into the qbtrainingevents.com and see what virtual Michelle had to drop off because she's helping out with a virtual conference and a virtual webinar series option as well. So thanks again for joining us, William. I really appreciate you coming on today, and
it was my pleasure.
Letting us learn a little bit about what's in the retail
on this topic, and I would if you didn't stop me.
All right, well, time out then, and we'll see you next time.
We hope you enjoyed listening to the QB Power Hour podcast. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in our Facebook group. You can find those resources and much more at qbpowerhour.com.